Good afternoon, fellow Cougs. For those who may not know me, I'm Dwayne Brailsford, WSU class of 1981, and I'm the president of the WSU Foundation and chair of the board of directors. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the first ever virtual meeting of the WSU Foundation. I hope each of you and your family, friends, and loved ones are healthy and are doing well amid this unprecedented global crisis that is impacting all of our lives in countless ways this spring. My thoughts are often with WSU and how we can help to maximize its impact and success in the world. But I found myself thinking about WSU even more so in the last few months. I think about my own amazing WSU experience, and I'm heartbroken for the current students whose college experience has been interrupted in so many ways. In particular, I think about the class of 2020, who celebrated the culmination of their hard work this past weekend, unfortunately away from their classmates who made that journey with them. I also think about the faculty and staff who have worked tirelessly to shift most of the university's operations across 6 campuses to online and to remote access. The problem solving, adaptability, and innovation, not to mention the graceful way everyone embraced these changes, is to be commended. Their efforts allowed our students to continue their studies and not to lose a step on their academic goals. I think about WSU's researchers, whose work is contributing to understanding and seeking solutions to COVID-19 and its impacts on healthcare and mental health, the economy, food systems, social interaction, and policy development. I think about President Schultz, interim provost Slinker, and the vice presidents and deans and chancellors whose leadership during this time has been inspirational. And as always, well, let's start with this. As always happens when I think of WSU, I think about opportunities of philanthropy. And these things can help to play WSU. It can help WSU to navigate through stormy waters, to make an impact on the world, and to be stronger and better positioned to meet the needs of our students, our communities, and our industries long into the futures. I know that many of you have entertained all these same thoughts over the last several months, and that is exactly what we'll be sharing with you today. So today, we will hear from a panel of presenters, including WSU President Kurt Schultz, Guy Palmer, the Regents Professor of Pathology and Infectious Disease, and the Jan and Jack Creighton Endowed Chair, as well as he's the Senior Director of Global Health. We'll also be hearing from Lisa Calvert, Vice President of Advancement, CEO of the WSU Foundation, and our good friend Gene Voiland, down in Bakersfield, California, Chair of the WSU Foundation Investment Committee. And finally, Lisa King, our Vice President of WSU Foundation and my chair, or Vice Chair of the Board of Directors. We also reserve time after everyone's remarks to address questions that were provided by many of you in advance of this program. We will try to get as many of the questions as we can today, and will commit to following up with these answers to any of those that we cannot address in our allotted time this afternoon. So, without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce the President of Washington State University, Kurt Schultz.
Well, hello, Cougs. As you can see, I'm wearing some of the newest Coug attire out there that will be part of our campus community this fall. So once again, trying to lead the way for the Cougar Nation. So with that, thank you for joining us today. We're excited to have you here for our first virtual town hall. And like many of you, disappointed we're not there in person to see each other, do the Mulligan Movable Feast. And I was thinking last night, interestingly, this is the 5th time I've been able to participate in this meeting, going back to 2016 on that first time when I remember Dwayne, after a drink or two, trying to get me to be able to do the fight song. I just couldn't quite do it yet, didn't have the coordination down. Now, wake me up in the middle of the night, shine a flashlight in my face, and I'm good to go. Just a couple quick things about what's happening at WSU right now. and I look forward to answering a bunch of the questions that many of you have moving forward. First, we were really excited about a week ago to announce that Dr. Elizabeth Chilton, who is currently the Dean of the Harper College of Arts and Sciences at the University of Binghamton, part of the SUNY system, will be joining us this summer as our new provost. Elizabeth is a professor of anthropology. She'll come to us with her husband, Michael, who will also be teaching in anthropology. She did a great job with her interview, came in, blew everybody away. She spent a lot of her career at the University of Massachusetts at Amherst, another land-grant university, prior to moving to her deanship. While at UMass, she served several successive leadership roles, including doing quite a bit of work in the Office of Research there, and then now has had experience for 3 years as Dean of a highly complex College of Arts and Sciences. So thrilled to welcome her. To show you her commitment, interestingly, she accepted the job, signed her contract, and never set foot in the state of Washington. So really thrilled to have her and her family. We got together with them this last week, found a house in Pullman. They are really ready to go, and we expect to see her here full-time this summer, and can't wait to introduce you to her either at a football game this fall or one of our different events. The second thing I'll notice is that we've been working all this last academic year on our first ever WSU system-wide strategic plan. This is, in the past, we've certainly had strategic plans. They've been good ones, but this was the first time we said, hey, we need a separate one from WSU Pullman. We need one for the system to really talk about how can we optimize opportunities for Cougs across the entire system. How can we make sure that we have the one WSU, the one degree experience, one faculty experience that's been part of us for the 30 plus years that we've had other campus locations. How do we continue to optimize that? So I look forward to sharing some details of that with everybody in the fall once the regions formally finalize this and adopt this coming up in June. And then finally, I've been active on social media. I've been out there on TV stations, just about any venue, talking about the fact that we at WSU plan to have in-person operations for fall 2020 fall semester. Some schools and some places have elected to say, hey, we're going to be online. We just think it's really, really important for that in-person experience at WSU on all of our campuses. And that's really what we're planning to do. Now, there'll be lots of questions, and I saw some of the questions ahead of time around some particulars of this, but let me just give you a couple kind of core principles that we're looking at. First, the safety of our students, faculty, and staff is paramount. That's number one. We're not going to do anything with in-person operations that can't ensure that it's a safe working environment for our faculty and staff and a safe learning environment and living environment for our students. And we're going to really continue to work really hard on that. Second, we've got some of the brightest minds in the world working on how we can manage, and I put that way, manage COVID-19 across our campus. And you'll hear from Guy, who's leading us through those efforts here in just a few minutes. We will put out plans so that everybody understands how we're going to manage campus operations. I can tell you this, it will not look exactly the same as it did fall of 2019. We'll have social distancing. You saw my fashionable Cougar mask. We'll have everybody wearing things like that. A lot of communications. We'll have contact tracing and apps and things like that so that we can manage in a COVID-19 environment, not eliminate COVID-19. The final thing I'll say is that some places, I think people are fearful. They're fearful that we can't do anything until we have a vaccine. And I think it's going to be a while before we have a vaccine widely available, widely distributed. So we've got to do planning, assuming that there's not going to be a vaccine available. It was important for WSU for us to put a marker down very early and say in person is where we want to be. Let's not argue about if, let's argue about how, and that's what we're going to continue to do. So right there, that's just a little bit of synopsis of kind of where we are as an institution. I will say this, our faculty and staff did an amazing job at pivoting from in-person to online over about a week to 10-day period. Everything wasn't perfect, but I'll tell you what, it was as good, as close to perfect as you can practically get, given the rapid turnaround time. Our students were super resilient. They reached out to us. The completion rate from classes looks really good. And so we were proud of the fact that we were able to ensure that students could continue on that academic journey, even though we had to switch to an at-home educational experience. So you all should be proud of the wonderful people we have at WSU across all of our campuses. Did a fantastic job. One of the other things that is out there during this time is it's very easy for leaders, for organizations to sort of want to hunker down, not continue to aggressively move forward. And at WSU, it's not just classes, but what are we doing to continue to support our students, to support our leaders? How are we continuing to engage with you all as trustees around philanthropy and things for WSU? One of the things that I'm really excited about is as we go through this unprecedented change and time, we still have a whole bunch of Cougs that are willing to invest in our future. So I'm really pleased this week and today to you all, we're going to announce a transformational commitment to establish an endowed deanship in the Edward R. Murrow College of Communication and endowed directorship in Cougar Athletics, thanks to a generous future gift intent from trustee Bruce Admonson and Julie Parker. So let's just be a little bit of virtual round of applause right now for that. So when funded, the Bruce Admonson and Julie Parker Endowed Deanship for the Edward R. Murrow College of Communication and the Bruce Admonson and Julie Parker Endowed Directorship for WSU Intercollegiate Athletics ensures the leaders of these programs have the discretionary resources to leverage emerging opportunities, maximize the impact on students, and boost the strategic direction for their programs. I had the opportunity when I was a Dean of Engineering at Mississippi State to hold an endowed deanship. And what happened is when students came to me with particular things that they needed, a faculty project, they need a little bit of money to finish something up. I was able to quickly and rapidly provide resources to allow people to do things that were great ideas and they just need a little bit of extra financial ability to make some things happen. So it's flexibility and investment in leadership is what's making the difference here. These endowments will help us retain and attract top leadership talent to ensure the vision and reputation for both the Murrow College and Cougar Athletics will flourish. We have two exceptional leaders right now, Dean Bruce Pinkleton and Athletic Director Pat Chun, and this is a testament to those two individuals for really setting the pathway for what this can look like. Bruce and Julie are wonderful friends at WSU. Their past and present support touches the lives of countless students and faculty each year, and we look forward to continuing to engage with them as we move forward. Their commitment provides endowed unrestricted support, so these future leaders can nimbly invest in strategic opportunities. And we're reminded by global events this spring how important having that financial flexibility and adaptability will be. It's also a testament for how transformational opportunities can be realized through the power of philanthropic vision and investment, and it raises the bar for excellence university-wide. So Bruce and Julie, I know you're watching today's virtual town hall. On behalf of everyone throughout the Cougar community, thank you for your generous vision, leadership, and commitment to Washington State University. So once again, a big go Cougs and a big round of applause for Bruce and Julie. Thank you so much. And if you think it looks a little weird me doing that, it looks really weird when I sit here clapping to my computer with nobody else in the room. So with that, let's move on to the next portion of our program. And it's really my pleasure to introduce Guy Palmer to you today. Our WSU faculty and staff conduct a wide range of critically important research. Our research is more important than ever. As a public land grant university, we have a core mission to serve the people of the state of Washington through research, extension, and education. COVID-19 and how to best respond to and recover from a pandemic is right now and in the future society's greatest need. Virtually every aspect of research, scholarship, creative activity, and extension activities our faculty and researchers engage in throughout the WSU system are important in response to and recovery from COVID-19 or similar crises. To facilitate this activity, a system-wide coordinated response is needed, matching our expertise with societal needs, especially where we have unique expertise to offer. An effort to effectively coordinate such important activities will help guide decisions around towards areas of greatest need and recruit teams of faculty, staff, and students to respond. With this in mind, that we've asked Guy Palmer, Regents Professor of Pathology and Infectious Disease, and the Jan and Jack Creighton Endowed Chair, Senior Director of Global Health. And we also asked John Roll, Vice Dean for Research and Associate Vice President for Strategic Research Initiatives at WSU Health Sciences Spokane, to lead and coordinate the university's academic and research response to the COVID-19 pandemic. This coordinated response will focus on matching the university's expertise with society's needs, recruiting teams of faculty, staff, and students to assist in this effort. To provide us with an update about WSU's research response to COVID-19, it's my pleasure to welcome Dr. Guy Palmer today. Dr. Palmer.
Thanks, Kirk, and thanks to everyone able to join in this meeting. Doing a little remotely, I'm glad Kirk took his mask off because I kept bursting into laughter when I saw it. But I want to thank also, kind of echo what Kirk said around Bruce and Julie's gift. And that's what I really want to talk about today is how those investments really can change things and have an impact that's not foreseen at the moment that commitment is made. It's the grain of sand that turns into a pearl over time. And I really want to give you a few specific examples of that. And just to see if I can get thrown off this call, I'm actually going to start with one at the University of Washington. But about 10 years ago, I can see Dwayne giving me a look. I'm gonna get more local in a minute. About 10 years ago, the Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation was stood up with a philanthropic donation by the Gates Foundation to actually look at global trends in diseases, very much a global focus. As many of you know, when coronavirus first hit in Western Washington, IHME really had the capacity, which had been developed over 10 years, to begin to model what those impacts would be, not only in the state, not only in the nation, but globally. And they became a go-to institution that really was looked on by policymakers, not only in the state and nationally, but globally in terms of the response. So it's really an impact that would not have been predicted at the time that it was stood up. Now I want to come a little more back locally with some things that have happened here. And I'm going to start with some global impacts that we've had, and then tell you how they're actually affecting what WSU is doing today relative to coronavirus. One is, as many of you know, and it's not only through financial contributions, but also through connecting us with individuals. Probably 7, 8 years ago, Howard Wright connected us very closely with an institution in Guatemala, a place that he had a lot of passion for. And we together developed a zoonotic disease research program. Those diseases transmitted from animals to humans. And over time, that's really developed into a strong partnership to the degree that WSU is the leading institution in that country for research with the US CDC. So when coronavirus hit the Americas, including Central America, they called on WSU to go to work with their Ministry of Health on their coronavirus testing and response. That was something that was put into motion well before we had ever worried about coronavirus. I think another example is how we've stood up what has now become the Allen School. And obviously, while it bears Paul Allen's name, I always want to note that there were over 300 different individuals that supported developing that program. And among those were Jan and Jack Creighton. And as many of you know, Jack passed away earlier this year, but the impact that his gift has made is going to continue long past his lifetime, long past mine, to really impact lives everywhere. So it's a chance for me to say thank you and talk about the impact that gift has made. So it's an example of what we stood up, and I'm going to start globally and then come right back to Pullman. In terms of our global approach, when coronavirus began to hit impoverished areas, UNICEF turned to WSU because we had developed the capacity in Africa to deal with the impacts of disease and response to it. So UNICEF has turned to us, and we had a large program there. The current coronavirus, the one that causes COVID-19, is not the first coronavirus we've ever dealt with. Many of you remember in the early 2000s, there was the SARS from Hong Kong that then spread, especially into Toronto. There's another one, the MERS coronavirus, which goes from camels to humans. And we had a large program with the CDC in East Africa. So when the new COVID-19 hit, we had the personnel in place, we had the PPE, we had the training, and CDC turns to WSU to do the work. And again, these are things that were put in place by donor investments years ago, never thinking about the impact that they would have today. So closer to home, as part of the Allen Center on the Pullman campus, we have a large testing capacity. So we use this in the past for zoonotic diseases. And let me just give you a little background of why this is important in terms of our ability now to work on the current coronavirus. Is most medical diagnostic laboratories, for example, if you think of Pap smears, they know about how many they're going to do next year. They don't really have to plan for something really unprecedented in their medical diagnostics. In contrast to that, animal diagnostics has to always be prepared for disease outbreaks. They may have to look at 100,000 animals at any one time with very little notice, something like a foot and mouth disease outbreak. So there's this, what we call a surge capacity. So the Washington Department of Health has reached out to WSU to develop this surge capacity so that we can do coronavirus testing, especially on the eastern side of the state, but serving the entire state and region. So we've now, as Kirk and I have been talking about, in terms of not only the return of students to campus, but serving the entire state is now coming out of this effort on the Pullman campus. That was not what was intended when we started the original gifts and the 300 of you who have supported this program. We weren't thinking of that capacity. And if we had to today say we wanted to develop that capacity, we couldn't do it. It was we're sitting under the shade of that tree that was planted long, long ago. And I think that's the kind of impact that these gifts have. So I'm really anxious to see 10 years from now what Bruce and Julie's gift will do, because the impact of these is when you invest in the right people and the right institution, the impacts that are going to come out of it are unpredictable and will, I hope, always far exceed your expectations. So thank you.
Well, thank you, President Schultz, and for your leadership during this extraordinary time. And thank you, Dr. Palmer, for all of your efforts and for the efforts of all the faculty and staff who are doing whatever they can do to fight against this coronavirus and its broad and complex impact on all our lives. And thank you, Bruce Amundsen and Julie Parker, for your remarkable leadership and vision for the Murrow College, Cougar Athletics, and for Washington State University. Your generosity and commitment is an inspiration to all of us. It is my pleasure to introduce Lisa Calvert, Vice President of Advancement and CEO of the WSU Foundation.
Thank you, Dwayne. And thank you, Kirk and Guy, for your exceptional leadership. I've been yelling "Go Cougs" all the time, so I'm a little hoarse here. So we really appreciate the leadership. And at the same time, this is extraordinary times right now with far-reaching implications. And it's wonderful to see such leaders with us here today on our panel. And at the same time, we have been watching closely the number of households that have been signing in to listen here at the beginning. It looks like we're almost at 200. So again, just want to say thank you to all of you here today for joining us, because as we've said, with the wonderful news about Bruce and Julie's commitment to the future of Murrow's College, athletics, and to WSU, it's really a wonderful moment for us to celebrate. We did a little early celebration at the first of the year before social distancing was in play, where we were able to join Bruce and Julie, who we know are watching today, to sign the papers for this wonderful gift. And again, just want to say thank you to them. And at the same time, directors and trustees, please know you are the first to hear this news because you are so important to us. This news will be released next Tuesday to the broader Coug community. So if you can hold on to this news, we'd like for you to do that so that it can be shared on Tuesday with the celebration it deserves. The other thing that's so exciting about this is that as we're reminded that only in March we celebrated our 130th anniversary of WSU's founding, it's this type of commitment that allows us as WSU to continue to meet the needs of our students, our community, and our world to find the solutions with investments like this. So again, Bruce and Julie, thank you for being with us. Your help will help us endure these challenging times and be strong as we look into the future. So one more time, a round of applause and a go Cougs. So as we look forward, we'd like to provide you some updates on the advancement team. And as a reminder, advancement includes the foundation, Alumni Association, and our development teams in the colleges, campuses, and units. We are really working together. We believe that we are stronger together, and we're working closely in partnership with the university leadership to monitor all federal, state, and local responses to COVID-19. Because first and foremost, it's about the safety of our staff, our colleagues, our volunteers, you here, our donors, because that is what we need to focus on first, is our staff and placing them in a safe environment. Last winter, we were very fortunate. We worked with all of our teams for working from home remotely as the winter months approach. So we were very well situated for this. So again, thank you to everyone for helping us get set up through technology. As we have been navigating this the last couple of months and through the summer, one of the things that we've been consistent in sharing with our staff is, one, take care of yourself, two, take care of your family and loved ones, and three, as we try to navigate this new normal, do the best you can. That's all we're asking of our staff, is just to do the best you can, as well as to communicate, communicate, and communicate. And I really have to say, it's been truly inspiring to see the grace, the compassion, the sincerity of everyone working together during these unusual times. In many ways, we're actually getting more done together because we are now learning to work together in different ways. We've been holding town hall meetings for our advancement colleagues. The turnout has been really quite surprising, and we'll continue to hold those sessions. We've had Stacy Pearson, our CFO, join us, share information about budget. We most recently had enrollment management join us, Eric Godfrey. And so we're partnering together to keep the most current news available to our teams so that they can also share that with our alumni and donors. One of the things that we're very sensitive to is, in listening to you as we're adjusting to the new normal, how we engage with our alumni and donors needs to be very different and thoughtful, as well as how do we have conversations with you, our investors. We know that right now WSU is not the focus for many families, nor should it be, but we're here to be with you and to support you. We've had many conversations with individuals about what we can do to help, and when we can, we do help. And we have provided expertise, as Guy said. Some of our faculty and our researchers have partnered with you and your businesses in having conversations about how we can help you, especially around senior living. Most recently, we had a fireside chat with Nancy Swanner, and some of you have reached out to her to ask for more advice. So we're quite aware that we're a partner with you, and we want to grow our connection with you stronger and more personally. At the same time, what we're hearing from you is that you want to hear more from us. during this time. And you're asking for us to thoughtfully engage with you, to share the wonderful news like Dr. Palmer shared or Kirk about the wonderful solutions that WSU is providing, co-leading for our state, Pacific Northwest, as well as our nation and our world. So as we look for new ways to communicate to you, as you are asking, we've stood up a philanthropic communications team that is working with our development teams in the colleges and campuses, as well as with the offices of provost, research, marketing, and communication. So again, as you have ideas or certain topics you want to hear, please reach out to me so that I can pass that information on. We're partnering to really look at different ways to provide information to you. And I really want to do a shout out to Tim Pavish with the Alumni Association. Tim is responding quickly and nimbly to the request of our alumni. For example, many alumni who have been out of college for a few decades or more have asked for help on how do you re-enter the job market through a job search? How do you do your resume? And Tim has actually been holding resume workshops. We're having anywhere from 50, 60 people attending to help them as they're in the new world of looking for a job. So again, want to say thank you to that team because they're being very sensitive in how we communicate. One university will go unnamed, but again, how we're communicating, how we're pulling back our communications in light of what's happening. A university that goes unnamed recently sent out a mailing that said the only certainty is change itself. So please remember us in your estate plans. That was a little not well received. So once again, we are being very thoughtful in our communications and how we communicate with you. The other thing that we've heard from you is that you really want to help the students and you're asking how you can engage with the students. I'm delighted to share with you, we set up a website quickly for emergency student support. As of today, we've raised nearly $188,000. Thank you for that. Thank you for your commitment. Most all of these funds for the different campuses have been used and need to be replenished. So we're asking you once again to consider helping our students. And you can see here on the screen a link on where you can make a donation and investment in our students in our different campuses. Because one of the most powerful characteristics of you is Coug help Cougs when it's needed most. And we're looking to you once again for your help. Because as we develop new strategies on how to communicate, we are redoubling our efforts to provide relief funding for our students. We also are shifting our strategy to fund exceptional research and outreach around understanding and developing solutions for the pandemic, which impacts all of our lives. And some of the examples that Guy shared are what we will be working with you to invest in. So once again, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all of you for your support because we're learning from you, we're navigating this crisis with you, and personally, I've reached out to dozens and dozens of volunteers. We are shifting our strategies on how we're doing our business based on what we're hearing from your sage wisdom and experience, and it is working. We'll share a little bit more about that here in a moment. Many of you have asked during economic downturns, what happens to philanthropy? So wanted to share with you quickly just a chart to answer that asking. Is that typically during economic downturns, we see some slowing in the rate of growth in giving, but at the same time, there's usually small reductions. So the slide in front of you, the gold bars are during the economic recessions that we've seen in previous decades. So again, while it slows, it does seem to have a strong recovery as the economy begins to recover. In recent conversations we're having with our Association of Governing Boards, as well as our leading philanthropic experts in the country, what we're hearing is that most all institutions are seeing some decline in philanthropic activities since March. Due to the huge generosity of Coug Nation and the partnership with our university leaders and our alumni and friends, WSU is trending upward during this time, which goes back to Cougs Help Cougs. Through the end of April, April 30th, our total philanthropic activity was just over 103 million. This is 12% up from a year ago. And as of the end of February, we were running dollar to dollar to the previous year. We're up 12% in the last 2 months due to WSU's generosity. Our donor numbers are running strong, and our WSU Alumni Association memberships the renewal rate is strong. This is exceptionally good news, as many in the industry are not seeing these results. This is a testament to the amazing leadership of our volunteers and the generosity of our alumni and friends who continue to make a difference in the lives of our students and our faculty. Again, just thank you, because this is so inspiring to see how you have stepped forward to help our students and our faculty to meet the needs of society. As we look forward for next fiscal year, which starts on July 1, and we're looking at how we'll close out this fiscal year, June 30th, we're being cautiously optimistic. We're looking at closing out the year at 115 million. Again, cautiously optimistic, whereas last year we were at 132 million. As we look forward into the first 6 months of the next fiscal year, again, we'll partner with you again to continue those philanthropic conversations. Again, we are partnering closely with the university leadership. We had a meeting this morning with Stacy Pearson, our CFO, about how we can partner together, especially as we enter the fall, and looking for new philanthropic dollars to really support the needs of our students, of our faculty, and really move forward in new ways that we've not seen before at WSU. A lot of the techniques that we're considering and we're talking about with Stacy today are recommendations that are coming from you. Jean, we talked about some of the activities that you're doing that you had shared with us. So again, we are partnering with you to find solutions to really move forward the university in these uncertain times. This also gives us an opportunity to move forward planning on key projects involving the campaign to build philanthropic support for the future. So as we look forward, we know it will not be the same, but we do know that we'll be stronger together and stronger with you. What I do want to share is that you are truly an inspiration to us. You're the backbone of our philanthropy. We are indeed grateful to you. You lift us up, and we just want to say thank you, because we're stronger together and we are indeed grateful. It's now my pleasure to introduce to you someone who is deeply committed to the university, is working tirelessly with our investment committee. And it's my pleasure to introduce Jean Boylan, who chairs our investment committee, about our endowment. Jean.
First off, thank you very much, and good afternoon to everyone. Obviously, this is a very difficult time economically, and I want to update you on where we are. We actually just had a meeting of the investment committee yesterday, so this is as up to date as it can be. Obviously, the financials run a little bit behind, but anyway, I think I can give you a feel for where we are and what we might expect versus how the markets are doing. So if I could have the first slide there. Thank you, Trevor. These numbers, I'm going to talk about year to date, but these numbers are for fiscal year. And you can see the endowment beginning balance was $515 million, $0.8 million. And we have suffered a decline over the 9 months of 38.7%, which or 38.7 million, which is a 7.4% decline. And so that is actually the numbers where they are. And I can make a comment through, if you want to think about year to date, in 1920, or in 2020 through March 31st, the endowment was down 11.7%. At the same time, the S&P was down 20.6%, and the Dow was down 18.2%. And if you took a 70-30 type ratio of stocks and bonds, that was down about 14%. So we've outperformed those benchmarks. The good news in April, actually the portfolio recovered, the market recovered somewhat. And so our best guess right now is, rather than 11.7% down for year to date, it's about 7%. So given the carnage, that's probably not too bad all over, but it's still, we don't like to see that. The next slide, if I could have it, tells just very shortly, it's a little bit busy, but it tells you why WSU the portfolio is outperforming the markets. And it's really two things. First, the hedge fund portfolio, which we built up over the last 15 to 20 years. You expect equity-like returns from hedge funds with bond-like risk. And that indeed is what's happened. And you can see on this chart right here, if you look at the returns on the left axis, you can see the WSU being at I think it's 4.5 or 4.8 versus a 70-30, which is a little higher, but being a lot less volatile. And so you're able to take that money and invest it in something besides just bonds. So they've proved very, very helpful on the downside. The other thing that over the years, we've built up our portfolio to 15% private equity. It has greatly outperformed the markets, the 70-30, and it actually has added 1.5% overall for the last 10 plus years to our portfolio, being and only having 15% of the portfolio. So all in all, the fact that we have this balanced portfolio, we have a pretty good, I would say, management advisor to us. We've actually been able to beat the markets, if you will. We're not killing the markets, but we're beating them. But this is very different than we've had in the past, and I think it says the portfolio allocation has been good. If I could have the last slide that I'm going to talk about, this basically tells you how we allocate our endowment funds, and this is a very conscious decision. We put 50% to growth, 30% to risk reduction, and then we have inflation protection that we have. So it's 50, 30, 20. And when you take these and look at them in terms of expectations for growth, this we think gives us the best chance to grow the assets over a long period of time while controlling the downside. And these are not an accident. We have a committee that spends a lot of time in this. The books that we get every 3 months to go through are usually around 200 pages. And we're very careful with how we do the investments and so on. So overall, I think it's done very well. We'd like to be able to say we do even better, but we are exposed to the markets, and that's the way it is. But we're hopefully doing better than that. So anyway, that's a 5-minute discussion of what we've been up to.
Great, thank you. Do we have additional detail from John Thorson? Hearing none, we'll move right along here. First of all, Gene, thank you so much. I mean, your professionalism, your leadership, your guidance not only has guided us for many years, but guiding us through these waters right now is I would never want anybody else at the helm. And you too, Lisa Calvert, it's been an honor. It is an honor to be a part of your team. So thank you so much. Again, I would not want any other leaders in these times than what we have at Washington State University. These are extraordinary times, so it is encouraging to know that you and your team are working hard to shift philanthropic strategies to meet the rapidly changing needs of the university. As we look ahead, we still have a campaign to run. Critical to that will be the meaningful, strategic, and rewarding engagement of all of our volunteers in the years ahead. Leading an effort to do just that is Lisa King, our Vice President of WSU Foundation and a Vice Chair of the Board of Directors, my cohort in crime with the Board of Directors. Thank you, Lisa. Appreciate everything you do as well. So take it over, Lisa.
Thank you, Dwayne. I have the privilege of speaking to this afternoon about how we're continuing to improve and evolve our foundation as the needs are to be met. Based on the observations of WSU Foundation directors, trustees, and staff, and as documented in the 2017 Philanthropic Impact Study, our volunteers are looking for an experience that is more meaningful, engaging, and impactful in efforts that will advance WSU philanthropy. The WSU Foundation's ultimate goal is to grow a sustainable pipeline of philanthropic investment in WSU. Success will depend on our ability to optimize the deployment of all resources available to us, including staff, volunteers, and the budget. Essential to this effort is the effective and meaningful engagement of volunteers. With campaign planning underway, now is the time to assess the trustee experience and to recommend and implement a productive volunteer engagement strategy that will maximize the impact of philanthropic activity university-wide while using industry best practices to amplify and leverage the reach of WSU advancement. With this in mind, we established a 12-member trustee engagement task force. This task force has begun to meet, and we will continue to meet on a bi-weekly basis as we define and implement this new approach. Our specific charges are to define what an optimal and meaningful volunteer engagement experience should be, recommending a university-wide volunteer engagement strategy that defines the trustee position and role, adds value to WSU's philanthropic blueprint, enhances the capacity and capabilities of staff, and respects the time and effort of both staff and volunteers. The strategy must be both scalable and enhance WSU's and the WSU Foundation's ability to readily pivot to high-value opportunities as they arise. We will produce a proposal of recommendations for the review of the trustee membership in the fall. We will roll out and proceed with a communication plan to all volunteers to help maximize engagement in collaboration with the WSU Foundation staff. And as recommendations are adopted, the task force will continue to advise, communicate, and assess the implementation of the new trustee engagement structure and strategy. I am very pleased about the composition of this task force, as we have representatives who are from a broad variety of generations, backgrounds, experiences, and connections with WSU in an effort to reflect the diversity of perspectives across our volunteer community. Joining me on the Trustee Engagement Task Force are trustee representatives Bruce Amundsen, Casa Hannon, Katie Hawley, Chris Marker, Gina Myers, Liz Pritchard, Patty Ward, Isaac Wells, and Rebecca Zanata. Our Board of Directors representatives are Joan Berry and Vicki Gordon. Our staff representatives include Joanne Granger, Christina Peterson Wilson, Anna Burton, and Tara Howe. The task force wants to hear from each of you. In a few weeks, a member of the task force will reach out to you via email with a link to a quick 5-question survey to learn more about what you value currently in your volunteer experience and what you would like to see it become. We encourage your input throughout the summer. Please feel free to contact me or a task force member with your thoughts. Our expectation is that the months of May and June will be our idea generation period. July and August, we will be vetting and refining these ideas to finalize the recommendations for the fall. Your participation will be invaluable as we've partnered together to create a meaningful and engaging experience that will advance Washington State University's philanthropic efforts during the impending campaign and for decades to come. Thank you.
Got to unmute there. Thank you, Lisa. Appreciate it. Well done. Next year, this brings us to the end of the formal remarks for today's program. We would like to spend the rest of our time together this afternoon answering the questions that have been provided to us by many of you. With that, I want to turn it over to Christina Peterson-Wilson, Associate Vice President of Administration and the WSU at the WSU Foundation, who will moderate today's questions and answer session. Christina?
Great. Thank you so very much, Dwayne. It's a pleasure to be here today. For this afternoon's meeting, we encourage you to submit questions for our panel members. When asking a question, please use the YouTube live chat function. We're monitoring this carefully. This can be accessed to the right of your video. To submit a question, you'll need to be logged into your Google account. If you run into any issues whatsoever, please feel free to send your questions directly to the following email address, which is foundation.com@wsu.edu. And we will also provide this email address in the chat function so you can easily access it. And finally, to ensure your best viewing experience, we suggest you avoid other Wi-Fi activities that may reduce your streaming bandwidth. So with that said, I'd like to continue the conversation, and I'd like to ask our first question that was submitted in advance. And Kirk, I'll look to you for this first question, please. And it reads, despite these uncertain times, is any consideration being given to reopening a WSU retail store in Western Washington, perhaps in close proximity to the WSU Everett campus?
Great, thanks. Great question. Before I answer the question, though, I just want to point out that in the earlier picture with Bruce Admonson and myself, we're both fashion forward and we're wearing very nice Cougar sweater vests. That's part of the newfound uniform for effective philanthropy at WSU. Now, Julie and Noel may not agree on the fashion forward part of the vest, but I'm sticking with it. It's whatever works. So it's a great question about a retail store. And let me just talk about retail stores in general first. As you all know, we had 3 at the time that we opened those up. We had one in downtown Seattle. We had one downtown Spokane. And what wound up happening is, frankly, we were losing about $1 million a year cumulatively with all of them together. And just at this particular time, so many people buy online that commercial space, that open space just doesn't make any sense for us. So regardless of COVID-19, even without that, this just doesn't seem to be a strategic move for the university at the current time, trying to get into that retail space. We need to be just much more aggressive in the online space with Cougar gear and things like that. And I think we're going to continue to work with folks around that. So anyway, that's the quick answer to that one.
Great, thank you very much. Guy, I'll look to you for the next question, please. And it reads, how are we getting the word out on work Guy and his team are doing at Washington State University around COVID-19?
Well, I can't really speak to how we're getting the word out. I'm not allowed to leave this bedroom. So I don't know how the word's getting out. Actually, I think through a variety of forums. Obviously, there's a lot of interest in the work we're doing, some of which we've just been a little bit conservative, I would say, in putting it out, because there's obviously just so much public interest in terms of coronavirus testing and how we would respond to that. That I think we've wanted to under promise and over deliver is kind of the way we've looked at it. But that said, I think we're very close to getting a little stronger word out, a little more definitive word.
Great, thank you. And I'll also look to Kirk for his response on this question, please, too.
It's a great question, and we're really proud of the work Guy continues to do in this particular space. I just a reminder, most everybody on this is seeing a bit of an insider view on about where we are and what we're thinking about. We fully expect in the next couple weeks to start being able to put out to the campus community and the community at large some of our strategy that Guy is helping us put in place for the fall 2020 semester. I think once we start rolling those things out, that's going to be the right time to talk about it and to make sure that we give kudos to Guy and his team and the great job that they're doing. So don't expect to see something in the Seattle Times on Monday. We're just not quite ready for that. But what will happen is we will, as we get this out, we want to give appropriate attribution to our own exceptional people and talk about what it means. And I think that'll be the right time to do that. So I just don't want anybody anticipating, well, how come I didn't see something immediately? Nobody's doing anything. We just want to wait, like Guy mentioned, for the right time, the right place to be able to do that. And I think Cougs generally, under promise and over deliver. And that's where we want to be on all this kind of stuff.
Great, thank you both. And it's a very natural segue to the next question that was submitted. Guy, could you please elaborate on what areas of faculty expertise will have the most impact on the pandemic?
Wow, that's a great question. One is I'm a little reluctant to predict what's going to have the biggest impact because sometimes the impacts are not what we would expect. So let me give you just an example because we have been working with individuals in the Murrow College, the faculty there. And a lot of that you'd say, well, they don't do testing, they don't do vaccine development, they don't do drug delivery, et cetera. But their expertise in communications and understanding how to effectively communicate to different populations is going to be critically important to understand what works and doesn't work. I think everyone can appreciate, for example, there's fatigue with the stay at home, stay safe. There's fatigue and different opinions about wearing face coverings out in public. And obviously, whether you're dealing with a student population or an agricultural worker population, knowing how to effectively communicate and with an evidence base to say that that's what communicates effectively is going to be critically important as we go forward. There's a lot of the Murrow College faculty have a lot of expertise in either both misinformation and sometimes disinformation, and helping the public sort through those messages effectively is going to be critically important in the coronavirus response. Similarly, in the College of Engineering, the Laboratory for Atmospheric Research, looking at what kind of air handling systems are most effective in reducing the risk of aerosol transmission. It's a long-standing laboratory, great expertise, now brought to bear on this. So I think there's just across all of the colleges, I think we can point to something that's going to have an impact. Our College of Education, for example, as you can imagine, the challenge, what we tend to say is that this coronavirus pandemic has kind of illuminated some things that were existing before, inequities in online access, et cetera. Our College of Education is well prepared to begin to address those things and help our agencies work through that so that when we come out the other end of the current pandemic, we're stronger and have strengthened some of those pre-existing inequities that help raise all of society forward. Thank you for that question.
Thank you. Kirk, I'll look to you for our next question. It reads, any thoughts or ideas as to what the housing on campus might look like? I know a lot is still unknown, but would love to hear what you are thinking and talking about. And thank you for your leadership.
Well, you're welcome. Great question. Dwayne said we don't need to worry about, that on-campus housing stuff. He'll be happy at DABCO to take care of all of our student needs. So, a couple things. One of the things that Guy and his team are helping with some of the modeling work is also a set of protocols about what things need to look like. And we are very interested in having students occupy residence halls as well as apartments, apartment complexes, and things around town and in the community. So what is it going to look like? Are we going to have one person per room or two per room or those types of things? Those are still decisions that we're considering, we're looking at, and we'll be figuring some of that out over the next month or so as we get better data information and determine what our testing capabilities will be locally, as well as what we want to do with things like contact tracing and things like that. I believe that we will figure out a very reasonable approach for our residence halls that will be safe for our students and for our staff and anybody who interacts. I also believe that we're going to be fine on the classroom environment. We'll wind up flipping some classrooms where instead of a 500 person set of students crowded into an auditorium, maybe you do some part of that online in a hybrid format. And you have smaller sections of in-person students with social distancing to answer questions and to do that other part of the educational experience that maybe you can't do through technology. The third bucket, though, and this is the one that I think is really challenging, is how do we do the informal gatherings? How do you manage the rec, the student union, places where you may not have 250 people in a confined space, but you got 30, 35, 40 parties across campus or get-togethers or things like that. That bucket and how we're going to deal with that is certainly another aspect of what we'll have to have in pretty good place by the time fall semester arrives. And finally, I want to point out not just residence halls, but all of this, a personal responsibility is going to play a major role. I mean, we can't be Big Brother. We're not going to be able to watch everything everybody does. We're going to have our students, faculty, and staff and community members all in on making sure that we're all working together around some of these issues. If we think we're going to regulate our way to success, that's not going to happen. That'll be a part of it, but it's also going to have to be, as we set out guidelines, are people willing to abide by them when sort of nobody's looking? And so we're going to put all that together, but the residence hall experience will be different, but at the same time, we want it to be safe, and we want to be the type of thing that as parents, people have confidence that their students are in a safe place. And if they are exposed to COVID-19, that we have a quarantine program in place, we've got a testing program in place, and that we do it in as seamless a fashion as we can for those students to have a minimal impact on them and their educational experience. So the good news is we got 3 months because we're going to need all of it to be ready.
Great, thank you. Lisa Calvert, I will look to you for the next one, please. The question reads, how can we as volunteers help Washington State University during this critical time?
Thanks, Christina. The answer is continue to do what you're doing, please. Continue to lead forward. You're continuing to reaching out to us, asking us questions about how you can help our students. You're asking questions about how you can support the research like Guy has described, but continue to push us to think in different ways to help you help our students and our faculty. So that would be one. The other thing is continue to contact us with your ideas and suggestions about how we can do our work differently. Just in the last 24 hours, I have about at least a dozen emails from volunteers, from Mike Worthy to Jane Cody to, I can just tick off Dave McGoldrick. I mean, you all are so fabulous in reaching out, sharing ideas, sharing comments, telling us what you need to help us. So just continue that. And then the other thing I would ask as we navigate these uncertain times, as we look forward and partner with university leaders, help us think differently on how philanthropy can play a part in the future, especially with the fall semester. We may be asking you for help too. That's a little different than before, but partner with us to help push the boundaries of finding solutions for our students and our faculty. So again, we're stronger together, and you've certainly made us stronger. So thank you.
Thank you. And I believe, Kirk, you may have some follow-up sentiments on this question as well, so we'd welcome that.
Yeah, there's a couple things that continue to arise out there that our volunteers can be helpful with. The first is if somebody that you know is thinking about being a Coug at any of our campuses, and they're saying, well, maybe I'll wait on my educational experience, or maybe they've got a parent that lost their job and they say, well, we're just not sure we can afford it. It's really, really important to encourage future Cougs to apply. We've got great financial aid people that work with families across all of our campus locations, but if people don't apply, it's very difficult for us to be able to work with them in the way we need to. So that's one thing. Second, I think it's important, and only if you feel this way, but express confidence in leadership at WSU when you sort of in some grouping or you're around somebody, well, that seems kind of foolhardy or something like that. I'm not saying blind acceptance, but it's important to say, hey, we got good people up there. We've got great faculty, people like Guy involved. Look, they're going to figure it out and they're going to do a good job at that. That's second. Third, we need good ideas. Continue to bring good ideas forward. After my, smart alecky comment about Dabco, Dwayne and I got to get together and talk a little bit about how we're going to work with our community partners on housing. And he's got a whole professional group of folks that have worked on student housing for decades. We need that expertise to also help us figure out how to do this well. And then fourth, this can be hard, but I find as a leader, I got to do this a lot and should do it, is be positive. I interacted with all kinds of people that think the world's coming to an end. And I'm not trying to make light of that because it has affected many people's lives in very difficult and challenging ways. But we need to be positive. And I think that positive energy just catches on, and that's been part of the Coug spirit since I've been here. So I think those are four things that I think, in addition to what Lisa talked about, are really important for our volunteers to be out there. Continue to wave the flag, have confidence in leadership, get people to apply, be positive. Those are all things that I think are important. And, let the Huskies be out there wringing their hands, worried about stuff. We're going to kick their butt as always.
Great, thank you. Turning towards football, Kirk, we received a three-part question, and the submitter indicated that the questions came straight out of the Sports Illustrated story today. The first part of the question is, what if some schools can open and others, because of state governing orders, cannot? How will the Pac-12 proceed? And I'll pause there so we don't lose sight of part B and C.
Are part B and C easier than part A? Yeah, I like the easy ones. Okay, well, I think this is there's a lot of speculation out there, and a lot of it was fueled by Greg Sankey, the commissioner of the Southeastern Conference, about a week and a half ago, sort of implying that they might be ready to play football as the SEC, even if like the West Coast or other areas weren't ready to play. I talked to Commissioner Larry Scott, who I know is super popular with everybody on the call, yesterday, and this actually came up, and we talked about the fact that we need to be coordinated with our approach, and it's a competitive imbalance if Alabama's playing or some other places are starting at a different time, and our student athletes don't have that same preparation time. So I believe at the end of the day, there's coordination between the Power Five enough that we're going to be on the same page with getting that started. Now, the reality is, what about if the governor of California just says there not going to be any athletics in our state, for the fall semester? What are we going to do with that? I think that's a conversation I'm going to have with some of my Pac-12 colleagues next week, some of the presidents. I can say, though, from some private conversations, I believe there's a strong commitment on behalf of the Pac-12 CEOs that we need to find a way, assuming we can keep players and coaches safe, to play a fall football season. And I think we're going to see us move forward.
Thank you. And you led right into part B and C. And so with that, it reads, once football teams return to campus, what does preseason football training look like in terms of testing practices and schedules? And during the season, if and when someone tests positive, what will happen?
Those are great questions that I'm not going to be able to answer just because I don't know the answers to that. At WSU, and Guy talked about this, getting testing up and operational is going to be really critical for us, not just for athletics, it's for the rest of campus, faculty and staff, all those sorts of things. So I think we can develop a set of protocols that will work for our student athletes, that will work for our coaching staff and things like that. And I'll let some of my colleagues that know more about this help us shape that moving down the future. But I believe, Guy, I think you and others have been in conversations with Pat Chun, our own athletic director. And I know those conversations are occurring at a lot of campuses between sort of their science leads and the athletic staff about what things maybe need to be in place to ensure safety for our student athletes and our coaches. So I'll leave it at that at this particular point. Guy, do you want to add anything to this?
I would just say that that's pretty much spot on. We realize that there will have to be testing plans and also plans to how you deal with a positive, with a coronavirus positive, what your response is, and to realize these things can be managed. There are ways to effectively manage positive cases and not have them continue to spread, is in the scientific vernacular, to keep our transmission rate below 1.0, which is the goal, and how we monitor that and effect that is critical for all our students as well as our student athletes, staff and faculty. And that is our goal in the process that we're working through right now.
Thank you both. Guy, I'll look to you for our next question, please. How have our research and extension offices been utilized to support the needs of our communities to date?
So this is on several levels, and I think it's always important, sometimes we talk about our WSU campuses, and we always need to realize we actually have a campus in every one of the counties of the state of Washington. That's the land grant mission, and it's our presence. And that presence is super important because of the confidence that is engendered in those county offices, in our extension services, that they have those relationships at a county level that you cannot have. You can't have it just from Olympia. You can't have it just from Pullman or from any one of our campuses. It's that local presence. So I think in a few areas, there's probably many more than I even know. But obviously working through for K through 12 for hotspots, for communication, so online education, trying to level the playing field for students who do not have good internet connectivity has been a major emphasis from day one. In terms of us working with our agricultural populations, we had a conversation with the Secretary of Department of Agriculture for the state yesterday, dealing with how, with an influx of 100,000 seasonal workers, how we manage that at the community level. And that really relies on those extension offices and their local relationships and the trust that they have within communities that might not be responsive to a state level response, but with county officers that understand the needs of that population, have worked with them now for decades. Those county extension officers become critically important. So I think in nutrition and education, as well as managing the expectations of the community to be kept safe, our county extension offices have to date been extremely important and are going to continue to be even more important in the future.
Great, thank you. Lisa King, I'll look to you for the next question, please. It reads, if we have questions or ideas about how to make our volunteer experience more engaging, who should we contact? We truly do want to make a difference at WSU.
Okay, well, ideally, I think you should wait until the survey comes out. You have that opportunity then. But I'm looking at the screen to see if anybody's going to shake their head and say no. Is it all right for me to give out my email address? Okay, so my email address is lisa.k.king@wsu.edu.
Great, thank you, Lisa. Jean, I'd like to come to you next, please. And the question reads, thank you for the good news about our endowment. Could you please chat with us about who else is on the investment committee and the work that will be expected in the near future?
Okay, I'll have to do this by memory, but Isaac Wells is on it. Rick Doan.
Jean, can I help?
Yeah, why don't you, if you have the list right there.
Like you, I'm going off memory. Bill Ward, big shout out to Bill, Chris Marker, Mike Petto, and then
Mike Capetto.
Is there a Leo?
No, I just don't have it in front of me, all the people.
It's a great group.
Maybe if John Thorson's there, if you just have the list of them.
And Jean, I've got him to my left. I'll go pick up the list.
Yeah, okay, and then we could get back to that. But there are about 10 of us. Scott Carson is on it from the Regents. I just don't remember everyone at the moment.
Not to worry, Jean, perfectly fine, and we'll come back to part A. Do you want to chat with us about what activities will be expected in the near future that will be conducted by the investment committee?
I think one of the key things we're doing is working very closely with our investment advisor. And when you have downturns like this, it actually creates a lot of opportunity if there is money available. The investments turn out to be a lot better chance of getting high returns over the next 5 to 10 years. We saw that after the 2008 crisis, that some of our best performing private equity and those type of things occurred in that downturn because everyone doesn't have a lot of money. Now, the other side of that is it takes money to invest. And when we have the fact that the endowment has gone down and the cash needs of the university are not necessarily going down, we've got to really look at how do we manage our cash so that we balance this opportunity for better investments with this need to have cash. So I would say that we want to just be very, very careful and to try to navigate that. And it's just a balancing act. But rather than say meet once every 3 months, I think you'll see us meeting at least once a month via Zoom or whatever, and talking with our investment people about what are the opportunities coming up. It's and then we also just have to work very, very closely with the university to understand what the university's needs are from the endowment.
Great, thank you.
And I can-
Lisa, may I pivot back to you to recognize the committee?
Yes, we had a meeting yesterday, so we've got the list right here. Mike Capetto, Scott Carson, Jed Collins, Rick Doan, Chris Marker, Linda Nyhol, Bill Ward, and Isaac Wells. Thank you all.
Great, thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Jean. Kirk, I'll look to you for the next question, please. And it reads, what is the early assessment of the collaboration with the University of Washington on the Center for an Informed Public?
Yeah, great question. As many of you know, that's been a priority for me, is establishing really productive relationships with the University of Washington, really kind of at all levels. And We had an opportunity this last year where University of Washington approached us about the use engagement with the Murrow College of Communication, as well as some of our faculty expertise at WSU Vancouver in a joint center on the Center for Informed Public. And this center is working at sort of misinformation and disinformation in the media. So we happened to go to University of Washington campus. We were there for the unveiling and had a chance to say a few words, and people had these shirts that were, half of it was purple with a W and the other half was the cougar head and the maroon, the crimson. So far that has gone really well. That group's working effectively together. And to me, it represents the first of what I hope are many scholarship and research centers together that we do, that follows on a long-term tradition of us working with the University of Washington on things where it makes some sense. So, so far, all good. And as the center continues to evolve down the road, I think there'll be more opportunities for our students to collaborate, for our faculty to collaborate, research grants, these different types of things. And for the two flagship research universities to work together, it's just better for our state and it's better for our region. So, so far, big double thumbs up from me.
Great, thank you. And I'll turn to you once again, Kirk. The question is, how is the health of the Greek system at WSU?
If I look over the last several, let's see, okay, I was unmuted by host. It was flashing in front of me. A couple things. One, we're seeing some reinvestment in the Greek houses in Pullman that, at least when I first got here 4 years ago, we weren't seeing that as much. But we've got a brand new state-of-the-art Greek house coming up out of the ground that was privately fundraised for. I know there's been several of our sorority houses that I've had the opportunity to go by. They've done big expansions and things like that. So to me, people don't invest in that Greek community if they don't think the future is bright. I think the Greek community is part of what makes WSU a unique experience in our state. We got the college town, Pac-12 athletics, Greek community that's there. And I've watched the Greek system over my career also continue to evolve. And I think the young men and women coming out of the Greek system learn a lot about leadership. They learn a lot about working with each other. And if you look at our donors of today, the investors in WSU, a large percentage of those individuals are very active in the Greek community. So in my mind, a strong Greek community working with the university together means that it helps secure our future. So I had one son, many of you know, that did not go through the Greek system. I had another son that went through, he was a member of the farmhouse fraternity at Oklahoma State. Super positive experience, and people that are going to be lifelong friends, and the leadership and things he learned are fantastic. So I want a vibrant Greek system. It's got to be part of WSU Pullman now and well into the future. And I want to do everything I can to support it.
Great, thank you. I appreciate the response. Lisa Calvert, I'll look to you for our last question before we do a little housekeeping. The question reads, although statewide our economy has taken a significant hit, we are fortunate to have many companies that are actually benefiting from the change in consumer behavior, such as Amazon, Microsoft, Costco, Facebook, and all of the satellite tech companies that work with them. Have we developed a fundraising strategy to focus on those companies and their employers where stocks and their businesses are trading at all-time highs?
It's a great question, Christina. Actually, some of the advice from our volunteers has been to look at companies that are trending up and doing very well, and to develop a strategy specifically for those companies. So the answer is yes. We're just beginning those conversations, and great question, but the answer is yes, and we're on it. And again, this is the great thinking of our volunteers that are pushing us to think differently, because this idea came from several of our board of directors as well. And so again, thank you for asking the questions and pushing us to think differently.
Thank you, Lisa. And thank you to each of you for the meaningful questions today. And as Dwayne mentioned, as we started today's meeting, if we were unable to get to your questions, we will make sure to follow up with you directly in a meaningful way to answer those questions. One gentle reminder, today's announcement regarding Bruce Amundsen and Julie Parker's gift was a confidential preview for you, just as directors and trustees. The official announcement will be released on Tuesday. So as such, we kindly ask that you hold on any social media related posts to ensure that the communication on Tuesday can meaningfully reflect Bruce and Julie's impactful gift. Again, thank you for your participation. It's been a pleasure to moderate the Q&A session. And Dwayne, I'd like to turn it over to you for final thoughts.
Thank you, Christina. Great questions. One of the ones that hit me most is, what can I do as a volunteer? How do I become a volunteer? And one of the things is stay engaged. Ask where you can help. And one of the comments that Lisa Calvert made earlier is, this is not a time to retreat. This is our time to actually step forward and support WSU in any way we can. And one of the most meaningful ways is becoming a volunteer and helping with these great committees that we have. I know that Gene Voiland, I know myself and some others have been on either national, regional, or local boards. And this WSU leadership that we work for here is above and beyond any board I've ever been on. And I'm really appreciative and honored to be a part of that. So I want to thank you all. That's about all the time we have for the questions today. So we want to commit to you, as Christian said, that we will answer those questions as we can in a future follow-up communications. I want to end today on a high note by reflecting on the class of 2020 and all that they have been able to accomplish in the most trying circumstances. There's a screenshot there. Many of you may have watched the virtual all WSU commencement celebration over the weekend. More than 4,000 students, family members, faculty, staff, and others watched the program, which was a bittersweet tribute to all that this class achieved across each campus. We are also so proud of them. We are all so proud of them, but most importantly, I love this, that I want to share a short little video of La Raza, I think La Raza, celebration activities that took to the streets in the cities, in the Tri-Cities last weekend to give a personal Cougar touch to their WSU experience. La Raza has become a graduation tradition at WSU Tri-Cities, celebrating the campus's diversity and first-generation students in recognition of their academic achievements. Wow, how inspirational was that? That is so awesome. And that's a tradition every year down there in the Tri-Cities. In 1980, when I was to graduate, there's a new rule that you had to complete all your courses, I guess, to get a diploma, which I didn't complete. But there was this volcano that came out in 1980 that affected the university and its graduation as well. So a lot of people that I grew up with ran into the same situation. So the way to reach out, WSU, that's pretty special. So prior to signing off today, join me wherever you are in the singing of the Cougar Fight song. Do we got music or are we just gonna sing it? All right, let's do it. All right, I think we have a quick comment by Kurt Schultz, and is Kurt still with us?
Yes, I am here. If you enjoyed the video, just a big shout out to our WSU Tri-Cities Chancellor Sandra Haynes. That's from the Tri-Cities campus. She's doing a great job there, and that's just a reflection on the students there and her leadership. So just a big shout